Alright, buckle up everybody, I'm gonna say something really controversial here. Frey from Forspoken is an annoying character. She has bad dialogue, she's snarky, always quipping, always has an in-your-face reaction to everything, and even when she's fighting people, she won't shut the hell up. She has absolutely nothing on some of my favorite characters in media, like Spider-Man, Ben 10, Nathan Drake. Those are great characters. They just have amazing dialogue, you know? They're snarky, always quipping, always have these enjoyable, over-the-top reactions to everything, and even when they're fighting people, they don't stop. Wait a minute. Somebody recently mentioned to me the tonal similarities between games and series that get made fun of for having "he's right behind me, isn't he" humor in a game like Uncharted. And at first that lit a firecracker under my tushy, because you guys know I'm ride or die for my boy Nathan, but at the same time, I can't really deny that Uncharted does have this tone. It's in the same ballpark at least. In fact, when I went back and watched some of the best one-liners again, I noticed a couple lines that were quite similar to ones that get made fun of in other games or movies. But despite that, I consider Uncharted to have great writing and something like Forspoken to have not so great writing, so it got me thinking about why I felt that way. And before we continue, to be as transparent as possible, I should note that I've only played and or watched about 4 to 5 hours of Forspoken. I know that some people might yell at me for daring to talk about something before completing it in its entirety, but I think 4 to 5 hours of pretty constant dialogue is enough to discuss why it didn't work for me. Now obviously some of the reasons are more subjective. For example, I think both games are trying to be funny, but I think the quality of the jokes or quips are good in one and not in the other, but that's not exactly helpful to talk about, right? Like if somebody came up to me and asked to help improve a script and I was like, I don't know, be funnier? That doesn't do anything, trust me, people have tried it with me. So what else? What else can people actually improve on? Why else do I like Nathan and hate Frey? Purpose. There's almost always a clear and hand-picked reason for Nate to say what he does in Uncharted, not just in cutscenes, but also when climbing or exploring or fighting.
Is that a popcorn machine?
There's not a lot of lines that pop up at random points in the game. Even throwaway dialogue is typically hard-coded to a scene. On top of that, contrary to popular belief, Nate actually does shut up sometimes if you haven't moved to a point where the devs found it necessary for him to say the next line that they also hand-picked for that moment. And when he is saying stuff mid-combat, it's usually in direct reference to his exact situation. His friends might be chewing him out about how poorly his plan went, and he's responding. If he's by himself, he's usually just giving himself some directions or noting something important about what's ahead. He'll talk about how enemies are flanking in from the side, but only when enemies are actually flanking in from the side. He might let out an exasperated, "how many of these guys are there?" when reinforcements pop in, but not every time, not enough for it to feel like a canned, repeated response, and also never out of the blue. Not only will there be different variations on the line, but it's only ever said when the situation makes sense because Naughty Dog specifically set him to say it at a point in the game where they knew they were sending in tons of reinforcements. There's very few nondescript "take that, sir"
sleepy time, you fucking motherfucker
in this series. There are a few, but they're buried under a sea of far more purposeful dialogue. Even if he's just expressing frustration over something, the lines are always reflective of his current thought process. It's not just, "Hey Siri, play badass line number 12. If we take this idea to another game, an open world game while we're at it, even Spider-Man with all of its in-fight dialogue that's sometimes randomly selected has a big enough pool of jokes that you won't be hearing too many repeated lines. And in most main game missions, there are quite a few jokes and observations reserved for that specific moment. They won't show up anywhere else. Now, not everything he says is a banger, but at least Peter feels like a real person actually joking around about his current situation.
I've fought specters, but, you know, technically specters aren't ghosts. All ghosts are specters, but not all specters are ghosts. You know what I mean?
In Forspoken, it feels like the exact opposite. When Frey talks in combat, it's completely unnecessary most of the time. Like, you can tell there are like 15 dialogue options that she can actually say, and every 5 seconds, without fail, this game will go, this one. Okay, now this one. Okay, now this one. Okay, wait. This one again. Like, that is the definition of substanceless. Do you think I'm sitting there actually giving a rat's ass about anything she says when fighting? Like,
oh my god, that was insane.
Yes, quite.
Now that's what I call a pick-me-up.
Oh, a very astute observation.
Yeah, what he said.
Oh, this is quite riveting stuff.
Must be very satisfying facing enemies of this caliber.
Yeah, it does feel kind of pointless.
As wry as you are pensive, my darling. Frankly, I'm chuffed, my dear. Chuffed, I say. It's not just in combat, though. Every time you fast travel, there's like, it feels like a 70% chance for Frey to say,
why are we here again?
and every time I was like, What is the point of this? Somebody explain this to me. I've heard this dialogue so many times back when I played the demo. Like, does anyone think this makes Frey more endearing? That she doesn't know why she went somewhere, and she says it when she goes literally anywhere? Like, am I supposed to hear this for the 8th time in the last hour and go, ha, classic Frey, always forgetting shit? I don't know, seriously, why spam this endlessly repetitive nothing dialogue everywhere? Every time you even walk past a fast travel point in Hogwarts Legacy, this lady just has to tell you,
You can't imagine how inconvenient travel was before I invented flu powder.
this does not make the world or characters feel more alive. It makes them sound like lifeless robots. Stop it. I get that Uncharted is a linear game and so it's easier to control stuff like this, and an open world is bound to have some level of repetition, but I don't see how repeating lines like this is better than just removing them altogether. I mean, Forspoken and Hogwarts Legacy literally have built-in shut up meters. They have a slider for you to make characters not talk as much, which, like, thanks. But this isn't like a difficulty option or a setting that makes the game more accessible. It's a way to block out most of your writing because people will find it annoying. If you've gotten to that point, I feel like it's a good indication that that is not worth keeping in the first place. This can happen in games with generally good writing too. Every time you get hit with a fire attack in God of War Ragnarok, you gotta hear Atreus' dumbass go,
You're on fire! But you probably already know that.
I know, you little dickhead, I'm half a second away from setting you on fire. In Uncharted 4, there's a few open sections that have the lads cracking wise while riding in a Jeep, and you can hear jokes and stories, and it's great. And even if some of the jokes are worth rolling your eyes at, and you could start saying, cringe, cringe, Uncharted cringe, got him, you didn't really get him, because rolling your eyes is what you're meant to do in that situation. Everybody else in the car rolls their eyes at the person who said it too, because they're just having dumb fun. There's a sense of friendship and real character, even outside of cutscenes. These feel like actual people and not goddamn soundboards. And the game goes well above and beyond by not even cutting characters off in an unnatural way when you leave the Jeep. For example, Sam might be telling you a story and you'll jump out of the car and Nate'll say something like, wait, hold off on that, I gotta go check something out, and Sam will say, okay. And then you can go explore around a little bit, come back to the car, and Nate will say something like, wait, what was it you were talking about again? And Sam will go, oh yeah, and then continue. Uncharted 4 as a whole has maybe the most natural sounding dialogue I've ever heard in a game, and it's because they took time to give every line purpose and context. The new God of War games can on one end do this really well through things like Mimir's stories or exchanges between Kratos and other characters that give us extra backstory or flesh out their dynamic or tell us about the world, but then they also shove in useless, overused dialogue all over the place for no reason. And to be clear, I'm not saying fill 100% of your game with thoughtful, super meaningful dialogue, because if your game's huge, that's very hard. What I'm saying instead is fill the amount that you can, and then shut the f up the rest of the time. What is with this need to dilute the writing in these games with sheer quantity? I don't get it. Another part of this whole purpose angle is the dialogue directed at the characters or the player? I feel like the super annoying trend nowadays is really shitty fourth wall breaks where the game is just going, did you see that? Yeah, you were paying attention, right? Wasn't that sick? Come on, you know who I'm talking to. Guy in the gray hoodie with sweatpants on, tiny dick, no bitches. That was a cool thing that just happened, right? I mean, I like fourth wall breaks when they're done in a clever way, but not when they're desperately trying to pander to me. The most infamous lines from Forspoken's trailer, for example.
So let me get this straight. I'm somewhere that's not what I would call Earth. I'm seeing freaking dragons, and oh yeah, I'm talking to a cuff.
I feel like a super direct play at the audience. That's why people heard it and immediately started making fun of its marketing. It kind of feels like the script had directions underneath the actual voice line that said, Frey is excited, she's seeing freaking dragons, and now she's talking to a cuff. This is so weird. Make sure this line shows that excitement. And then the actress thought that was the actual line and went, whoa, I'm excited. I'm seeing freaking dragons. And now I'm talking to a cuff. This is so weird. Make sure this line... Oh, wait, I wasn't supposed to say any of that, was I? Can I redo that? What? The game's already shipped. How? I'm not even done my lines. Post-game DLC? No, this isn't how games are made. How does any of this make any sense? YouTube sketch? What YouTube sketch? Now, to be fair to the writers, there's a very fine line here. Like, it's a super normal thing for a character to end a long fight and say something like, thank God that's finally over. Which you could also argue is speaking directly to the audience, like, man, that was a long fight, huh? Sweatpants, gray hoodie, small dick guy, still talking to you. And yet, I don't really find something like that super annoying. But I feel like the difference is that this at least feels like a very feasible thing that a person would say after doing a long and arduous task. The reason people latched onto that trailer dialogue in Forspoken was because of phrases like this.
Okay, that is something I do now. I do magic. Kill jacked up beast, I'll probably fly next.
Is stilted, over-explanatory, and feels like a desperate attempt to outright say to you, this game is cool, it's cool, look at all the things you can do, look! Under the thin veneer of relatable dialogue. And if this was only an issue in the trailers and the game was much better at this, I really wouldn't say anything, I'd leave this poor game alone, but unfortunately this is pretty accurate to the final product I've played. And if somebody made the argument that Forspoken was only made fun of because these lines were taken out of context, and people could easily make fun of Uncharted in the exact same way if its dialogue was plucked out like this, I'd say, I mean, maybe a little, but not really. They are the same tone, but they're far from the same writing style and quality, and I've seen these lines in context in the flow of the game and still thought they were way too much. Really, a lot of this comes down to the acting and directing as much as it does the writing itself. If you can put the emotion in somebody's voice and then have them say something, it's a hell of a lot better than just outright saying the emotion. And this isn't even an indictment of Frey's actress, because I actually do think she gives it her all here, but if she's being told to spell out all her thoughts like it's an episode of Dora, there's only so much to work with. In conclusion, all games writing sucks, except for my golden boy who's never done anything wrong. By the way, before you go, you might have noticed that there's a members icon below my videos now, and this is just for anybody who wants to show extra support to the channel. I'm not going to be doing any exclusive content with it, but some people wanted to know how they could contribute, and I guess it would be cool to make more than $3 a video, so if you want to fork over all your cash, gimme all your money, it's mine now, I deserve it. Subscribe, join the Discord, leave a like, tell me what you think contributes to good dialogue in the comments. I'll see you all next time. Peace.